Well, thank you for joining us, everybody. This is going to be a very fun-filled town hall. Today we are going to be discussing two very important topics. One, energy efficiency, and two, cybersecurity. And cybersecurity will be handled by our IT manager, Todd Taylor, and of course I will be handling our energy efficiency presentation, your Energy Advisor with Paulding Putnam Electric, Peter Niagu. So as we got on with planning for this town hall, I was thinking, you know, how can we incorporate really good energy information to our members, and something that could be useful and applicable. And the thing that came to mind, which I use a lot, is what we call the conservation pyramid. So tonight we will be discussing quite a lot. Actually, we're going to be discussing all of this, this whole pyramid that we have in front of us. And this pyramid basically is how to start or where to start on conserving energy or energy efficiency. You know, I get a lot of questions quite often, you know, where do I start? You know, what do I do? There's so much information out there. And frankly, this pyramid is a wonderful way of detailing what you should do first and how you should do it. And the way it works is at the bottom of the pyramid, you know, it's probably the most, you know, it's the easiest application, and it costs the least amount. So that's where you want to start, at the bottom. So if we go through this pyramid quickly, we're going to be talking about understanding what energy efficiency is, you know, conservation, you know, how we you know, get started, essentially. The next thing on this pyramid is low cost, no cost items. We'll be discussing that. The next thing we'll be discussing lighting, air sealing. The next thing is appliances. And as we go further up on this pyramid, it's, you know, the cost of doing this and the complexity increases. Okay, so it gets more expensive, it gets more complex, and the return on the investment is not as great. It's just not as easy. Then we will discuss insulating and ventilation, water heating, heating and cooling, windows, and last but not least, renewable energy. And in this case, we're going to be discussing solar energy, because that's the hottest topic right now in terms of renewable energy. So this pyramid, we're going to dive in deeply. We're going to dissect it much more closely than I think anybody ever would. But I'm going to give you some real numbers, some real examples of you know, what costs are and what savings are for each and every one of these sections on this pyramid. So the first one that we're going to start with is understanding, like I said earlier. And what does that mean? Well, that means basically it's, you know, understanding what your house is doing, understanding what we can do in terms of energy efficiency. And how do we do that? Well, you've got a personal energy advisor, you know, on staff that you can utilize anytime you want. And one of the first things that anybody can do is have an energy audit on your house. So an energy audit, you know, it doesn't cost anything if I do a walkthrough, and it's a pretty in-depth audit. I have some equipment that I can use, and I can really gauge pretty well what your house is doing with a simple 1 hour long walkthrough. Another thing that you can do is you could just call me, you know, call the office, and we'll have a phone consultation. It's as simple as calling the 800 number and asking for Peter, the energy advisor or the energy guy. I can have a really good conversation over the phone without even being at your house. Basically, it would be an interview process, and it's, for the most part, it's really worthwhile. The next thing that you can do is look at our Cooperative Living magazine. That comes out every month. We have a new magazine, and there's a lot of really good information in that magazine. Every month we do something on energy efficiency or energy conservation. Next thing on the list here is simply going to our website, ppec.coop. We've got a plethora of information. We've got a lot of really good stuff on there. Everything from, you know, rebates, energy efficiency, a lot of great articles. There's a nice blog on there. There's just a lot of really good stuff. So I encourage you to go to our website. Social media, also we put a lot of information out there every day. And of course, last but not least, we have cooperative town halls from time to time, like we are doing right now. So there's a lot of information out there on understanding, the fundamental, the starting point of energy efficiency. So there's just a lot of great information that you can get from the co-op. And so the next thing on the list, on this pyramid that we're going to discuss, is low cost, no cost. This is a really easy one. This one is probably the simplest and most effective way to save energy. And it's as simple as setting your thermostat back. In the wintertime, you would set it back. And in the summertime, you would also set it back, but you would set the temperature up. Now, I want to say there's a lot of confusion out there on how much you should set it back, when, and I will tell you, if you are not home and you want to save on energy, turn that thermostat or set that thermostat back as much as you want, okay? As much as you want and as long as you want. Unless you have an air source heat pump or a geothermal heat pump, okay? That's critical. But if you have a gas furnace, if you have an electric furnace, if you have a baseboard heat, forced air electric, anything like that that is not a heat pump, you can set it back as many degrees as you want and as long as you want, okay? The cheapest kilowatt hour is the one that is not used, all right? Now, I did say something very important earlier. You can set back your thermostat as much as you want, except if you have a heat pump. Now, you can do that. You can set your heat pump back as many degrees as you want, as long as you have the proper thermostat for your heat pump. As long as it's a good term, or a term that you would hear is an energy recovery thermostat. And that is simply because your heat pumps work a certain way, and they can't typically heat a house very quickly. So if it can't reach the temperature that you're asking for your thermostat to reach quickly, it'll ask for auxiliary heat, and that's usually when you lose all of your efficiencies. So that's very critical. A couple of numbers, some numbers here. For every temperature, or for every degree you set your thermostat back, 1 to 2% energy savings is what you're looking at. So for every degree you set your thermostat back, you're looking at 1 to 2% energy savings, basically whatever energy source you're using. And again, this is the most simplest and cost-effective way to save energy. Anybody can do this and doesn't cost you anything. And it's the most cost-effective. And then next thing on the list, or on this pyramid that we're going to be discussing, is lighting. This is also a very low cost. I'm not going to say it's no cost, but it's low cost. So we will be discussing comparing LED bulbs to incandescent bulbs. Now, you're probably wondering, my goodness, some people are looking at this or wondering what's an incandescent bulb. They're on their way out. You can still buy them, and I do know a lot of people that still use them. But switching from a 60-watt incandescent bulb to an LED equivalent, there's about 85% energy savings. Okay, that's huge. That's astronomical. 85% energy savings. And frankly, LED bulbs today are not far off in terms of cost compared to the old incandescent 60-watt light bulb. So for example, if you take a 60-watt incandescent light bulb and it operates at 8 hours a day for 1 month, that's costing you about $1.44 at 10 cents per kilowatt hour. And that's how much our rates, that's how much our electricity or energy costs here at the co-op. So it's about $1.44 for 8 hours a day for 1 month straight. And an incandescent bulb costs roughly 75 cents and has about a year lifespan or so. Now, if you change that out to an equivalent 9-watt LED compared to a 60-watt, okay, 9 watts operating at 8 hours a day for 1 month costs you only 22 cents. So $1.44 compared to 22, and this is exact. This is one bulb. You can take that and multiply these numbers by however many bulbs you have in your house. 22 cents at about a 10-year lifespan. and each LED bulb is about $1.25. So it's about 50 cents more. So 75 cents for an incandescent and about $1.25 for an LED bulb. And actually, there's sales on them quite often, so you can get them even cheaper, LED bulbs. It's about $1.22 savings, and it's about a 1-month simple payback. So if you switch out an incandescent bulb to an LED bulb, it'll pay for itself in actually about a month or so. That's a tremendous value. And look, guys, I know a lot of this, the first few slides are going to be, they're going to seem a little elementary, and they are, but that's the point. You know, the bottom part of this pyramid is very basic and very elementary. This is very simple. Everyone should be able to do this. Shouldn't cost you a whole lot, and it should be very simple. It's not complex stuff. So now, as we go even further on this pyramid, we're going to be talking about insulation and or air sealing, okay? So as you get closer to the top of this pyramid, it gets more complex, it gets more expensive, and you know, the return is there, but it's not quite as great as it was for low cost, no cost. But at any rate, let's discuss attic insulation. And if we take a house that has a 1,000 square foot attic with no insulation at all whatsoever, and you are using a pretty middle of the grade, upper middle energy efficiency air source heat pump to heat your house and or cool your house, it's going to cost you $2,451.96 to heat and cool your home if you have zero insulation in your attic. Okay, $2,451.96, almost $2,500 in heating and cooling costs per year. Okay, now if we add an R40 to that same attic, that 1,000 square foot attic, an R40, you're looking at a cost of $45.90 per year for heating and cooling. Okay, so it went from $2,451.96, almost $2,500, to almost $46 in heating and cooling costs, just by adding attic insulation, an R40 to be exact. And so the savings for doing that is $2,406.06 per year, and the cost of doing that is roughly $1,200. And at $1,200, it's going to pay for itself in 6 months, slightly less than 6 months. So a 6-month simple payback if you put insulation in your attic. Okay, those are tremendous paybacks and tremendous savings for not a whole lot of money. So now, you know, we discussed how going from zero R value or zero insulation to a 40, an R40, what the savings are, and it's tremendous. It's actually 95% savings. But there is a thing that I want to discuss that not a lot of people understand or not a lot of people are hearing about, and it's called the law of diminishing returns. Okay, a lot of people have heard that term before, but the law of diminishing returns applies tremendously when adding insulation in your house or in your walls or in your attic or your crawl space, etc. And the reason why I want to explain this or show you this is if you look at this graph, this chart here shows, if you look at the top 100%. So I'm sorry, let me take a step back. So if you look at the percent of heat transmission, that's heat going through a material, heat going through your ceiling with no insulation. Look at that number, 100%. 100% of that heat is going through your attic floor or second floor ceiling or ceiling. Okay, so no insulation is going right through it. And then now you just start adding a very little R value, you know, a couple inches. By adding 1 inch of insulation, you're looking at going from 100% heat transmittance or heat transmission through the material, and by adding 1 inch, you're looking at 75% savings of heat transmission. So that means 75% of the heat is not going through into your attic just by adding 1 inch of insulation. And I'm not saying to add just 1 inch of insulation. What I'm saying is the savings is tremendous just by adding 1 inch. You know, and if you continue looking at this graph, if you go down where it says about an R20 or so, from 0 to 20 is your savings. That is tremendous, tremendous savings, okay? And the return is incredible. Now, if you go from 20 to 40, you can see the savings is less than 3%. So from R1 to R20 is about 95% savings. It's astonishing, right? And then from 20 to 40, it's only about 3% savings. So what I'm saying is, be careful on how much insulation you put in your attic. You know, I do have a rule of thumb, more is always better, but in this case, it's not necessarily better. And I'll give you an example of that on this next slide. So if you take that same attic that we added insulation earlier, if let's just say that attic has an R20, okay, of cellulose insulation, with that air source heat pump, you're only saving $91. You're only paying $91.83 per year, okay, from 20 to 40. And then I'm sorry, the attic that has an R20, it's $91.83. But if you go from R20 to 40, if you add an additional R20, it's only a savings of $45.90 per year. So that costs us about $600 going from 20 to 40. And the simple payback is 13 years, okay? 13 years to pay for going from 20 to 40. So if you take a step, go back on that one slide, like I said, 1 to 20, that payback is probably about 6 months. And then from 20 to 40, the payback is 13 years. So be careful on how much you put in there. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have an R40. I'm just saying, if you are going to put insulation, make sure you do it all in one, in one foul swoop, if you will, I guess. Because if you do it in increments, it's good to have, but it'll take a lot longer for it to pay for itself. Okay, so and I'm talking about this because nobody talks about this. Nobody really understands, the law of diminishing returns when it comes to insulation. Okay, insulating and air sealing your crawl space. Air sealing is a huge one. This is a huge, huge problem in a lot of houses that have crawl spaces. This causes a lot of comfort issues. If you have a crawl space that's not insulated or that's uninsulated, that is probably the most leaky part of any house, more leaky than any window or any door or any attic, etc. So if you take that same house with a crawl space and it's not insulated, and you insulate it with that same heat pump. And by the way, this heat pump that we're using, like I said, it's a SEER 13 with a 7.7 HSPF. And that basically is just energy efficiency numbers. So if you don't insulate your crawl space, you're looking at paying $288 per year without having an insulated crawl space. $288, almost $290 with that pretty efficient air source heat pump. Now, if you take that same crawl space and add 1.5 inches of spray foam all the way down from the box sill all the way down to the ground or the floor, with that same air source heat pump, it goes from almost $90 to $26.22 per year. $26 is what the heat loss will be after you insulate your attic from $288. And not to mention, you're going to have a much tighter house, and it's going to be much, much more comfortable as well as energy efficient. And the savings on that is $262.28 per year. And the cost is about $1,600, $1,632. And the simple payback is about 6.2 years. Now, folks, these numbers that I'm giving you right now, I know there's a lot of numbers here, but these are actual numbers. I did the math on all of this, and this is legit. This is real. This is all based on that heat pump I'm using. And if you don't have a heat pump and you have a gas furnace, I can do the same thing for you. I can tailor your house to your heating type, and I can tell you exactly how much you're using or how much you could save if you want. Just give me a call. Okay, so if we move on to the next section, which is appliances. Now, the appliances that we're talking about here are going to be kitchen appliances. And really, the rule of thumb for appliances is only replace them if it's necessary, if it's absolutely necessary. If they are not repairable, or if your refrigerator compressor goes out after about 15 years, you probably won't replace it. You'll probably then get a new refrigerator. But the rule of thumb is don't buy a refrigerator or a freezer or a microwave or anything, a dishwasher, strictly for energy efficiency purposes. Simply because the savings just don't materialize. They're just not very cost effective from doing it that way. But again, rule of thumb, you don't have to take my advice on this. I personally would never go and buy a new fridge just because it's more energy efficient than the older one. You do that when the fridge is time to be replaced, or any appliance for that matter. So that one is a pretty easy one. So the next section on our pyramid is electric water heating. Now this one is really very interesting. We're actually going to take some numbers here and discuss 3 different styles of electric water heaters. And I get these questions a lot, especially with these hybrid heat pumps that are becoming more and more popular out there. And by the way, I will have to tell you that the content that I'm using here, the statistics or the stats that I have are from a YouTube video. There's a fellow I follow. His name is Matt Risinger, and so the link is displayed here if you want to go and check it out. But I'll go ahead and discuss this with you anyhow. So we're going to be discussing 3 water heaters here. A standard electric water heater, 50-gallon. These types of water heaters have been used for decades, and they do a really good job of heating your water. This is a standard, storage tank style water heater, and the warranty on that is about 6 years, or it is 6-year warranty. And the next style that we're going to be talking about is a 50-gallon electric water heater that has a lifetime warranty. Now these water heaters are much higher quality. They have much better insulation values, the lifetime water heaters. And then the third water heater that we're going to be discussing is a 50-gallon hybrid heat pump, air source heat pump water heater. Okay, and this has a 10-year warranty. And the cost for each of these standard water heater is $500 roughly, with the 6-year warranty. A 50-gallon lifetime warranty water heater is about $1,100, and this 50-gallon hybrid heat pump with a 10-year warranty is $1,500. So $500, $1,100, and $1,500. And what we found is that the estimated yearly energy costs for all 3 of these vary quite a lot. And so for the inexpensive standard electric water heater, it costs about $415 to operate on average. Okay, the next water heater, which is that lifetime water heater, high quality water heater, that costs $428, which is slightly more, which is interesting. And then that 50-gallon hybrid heat pump, it only costs $110 to operate annually. So those are huge savings, tremendous savings. So if you go ahead and look at the cost plus the first year operating cost for the standard 50-gallon 6-year warranty water heater, that's $969. And then you move on to the next lifetime warranty water heater for cost plus first year operating cost. It jumps up to $1,528 because it was just that much more expensive. And then you look at the third option, the hybrid heat pump water heater, the first year plus operating cost plus the cost, it costs $1,660, okay, which isn't far off of that lifetime warranty water heater. So that's pretty interesting that it costs less than $1,000, but for the standard water heater, but it was a lot less expensive. So as we go down, watch what happens when we start going down this chart here. So cost of the water heater plus a 5-year operating cost, that 50-gallon water heater jumped up to $2,645. And look at this 50-gallon lifetime water heater. It jumped up to $3,200 over 5 years, plus the cost of the water heater itself. And look what happened with this hybrid heat pump. The operating cost was only $2,100 at 5 years, including the cost of the water heater. So $2,645, also comparing to $3,200, way down to $2,100. Okay, now the last line here is the cost of the water heater plus a 10-year operating cost. Standard water heater is going to cost you about $4,700. A 50-gallon lifetime warranted high-quality water heater is going to cost you about $5,300 after 10 years plus the cost of the water heater. And then look at that hybrid heat pump. The cost of the water heater was the most expensive, but after 10 years of operating, it's only $2,600. So more than 50% savings over 10 years, and that includes the cost of the water heater itself. So what we're seeing here is if you are planning on being in a house long enough to buy a heat pump water heater, and of course there are some pros and cons to all three of these water heaters, but the heat pump you definitely have to have it has to be the right area in the home. It can't be in a closet. It has to have ambient air around it that it extracts the heat out of the air that heats the water. So, there are some pros and cons. If you want more details, please feel free to give me a call, or you can do some research on your own. But ultimately, the bottom line is if you want a water heater in a house that you're going to be in very long, or more than 10 years, 15, 20 years, go with a heat pump hybrid by far, even though it costs the most. The other interesting thing is here, if you're going to be in a house in not so long, 6, 5, 10 years, maybe a standard $500 electric water heater is just fine. It doesn't cost as much as the very expensive $1,100 lifetime warranted water heater. So I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers out here at you guys, but I think these are very important, critical discussions we have to have, because this is what I talk to. I get a lot of these questions a lot with our members, so I just want to share, this part with you guys. Bottom line is, if you're going to be somewhere short term, a cheap water heater is just fine. Long term, hybrid is probably your best way to go. And there's also a caveat to that cheaper water heater is it lasts. There's a 6-year warranty on it, and they don't last much more than 6 years or so. So you definitely will have to replace it sooner than that heat pump water heater. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next slide, which is heating and cooling. I know this is a big one because this time of year is when we start heating our houses, and this is when you'll start seeing your electric bill increase drastically. Typically, November, December, January, February, those months are obviously our heating months, and you'll see in most cases a 50% spike in energy use if you're heating electrically. So what I want to do is discuss how we heat our houses and discuss what a BTU is, or also known as a British thermal unit, a BTU. And so I'm going to read this to you guys. So a British thermal unit is a measure of the heat content of fuels or energy sources. It is the quantity of heat required to raise the temperature of 1 pound of liquid water by 1 degree Fahrenheit at the temperature that water has its greatest density. Basically, one BTU is approximately 1 match, okay? It's equal to 1 match of energy. So 1 BTU is basically 1 lit match, okay? And that's how we heat our houses, by BTUs. That's the unit measurement that we use. It's a British thermal unit, a BTU. So I'll be talking a lot about BTUs. That's why I'm sharing this with you. So if we look at heating, now once we get upwards of this pyramid, we're getting towards the heating and cooling aspect. It's when it gets a lot more complex and a lot more expensive, and it's just more money. It's not as easy. These projects. So when we're talking about heating, if you're looking at this slide here, these are the most prominent heating methods or heating types, heating fuels that we use in our area within the cooperative. So what we're going to be talking about is cost per delivered BTU. Actually, it's per million BTUs, okay? So if you look at this first line here, geothermal with a COP of 4.8, that's basically the miles per gallon of the geothermal, and at 10 cents per kilowatt hour, which is what you're paying for electricity, per 1 million BTUs, the cost is about $6.10, okay? Heating with geothermal. That's really, really cheap. That's a great, probably the most efficient way to heat and cool your home. The next on the list here is natural gas furnace with a 95% AFUE, which is, again, energy efficiency, at 70 cents per therm. Right now, the cost per therm is about 70 cents. It's been fluctuating up and down some, but let's just say it's about 70 cents on average right now. So per 1 million BTUs of heat with natural gas, it'll cost you $7.37. An air source heat pump, with an HSPF of 7.7 at 10 cents per kilowatt hours, it's about $12.98 per million BTUs of heat. And by the way, guys, BTUs, every house over a winter uses millions, hundreds of millions of BTUs, okay, just so you know. I didn't want to get very exact on this. I just wanted to be sort of general because it's very hard to specifically, calculate costs. I just want to be more general here with everybody here with these different types of fuel sources. Now let's go down to propane. There's a lot of propane out there at a 95% efficient furnace, AFUE, at $2 per gallon. That's what we're paying, about $2 per gallon right now. For 1 million BTUs of heat, you're looking at about $23. And then the last one, electric resistance heat at $10, 10 cents per kilowatt hour. And this is straight electric resistance heat, like a forced air electric furnace resistance heat, baseboard heat, ceiling cable heat, space heaters. For every million BTUs, you're paying about $29.30. So it's pretty drastic from electric geothermal heat to electric resistant heat, from $6 to $29. And one more thing, I want to go back, just take a couple steps back. I thought about this as we were going over these numbers. Electric heating, I get this question a lot too. When do I switch to propane or natural gas? Well, unfortunately, for a lot of people, there is no natural gas in our area. If you're in rural Paulding County or within our territory, there is some, but it's not a very, prominent fuel source. But going from electric to propane or propane to electric, vice versa, the rule of thumb is if you are paying more than $2 per gallon for propane, you're better off heating with an electric resistance electric water heater, okay? So there's that fine line, that balance point between electric and propane. This is strictly propane. If propane is less than $2, you're going to be ahead with using an electric water heater, okay, as the fuel source. And if it's more than $2, then you're going to be ahead in terms of cost with the electric water heater. So again, that balance point is about $2 per gallon, more or less. Okay, I just wanted to get that in there really quickly. So the next topic on this pyramid, which as you notice, we're getting higher and higher. And the next one that we're discussing is Windows. This is also a really big topic that I get a lot of questions on. And I did some numbers here. I did some calculations. And let's just say you're replacing 12 windows at your house, 12 3x5 single pane windows, okay, with a nice double pane window. Now, I understand there are not a lot of windows out there per se that have a lot of houses that have single pane windows, but they are out there, okay? They do exist. I still see them. And if you do have a single pane window, I recommend you go to a double pane. So, because here are the numbers. So the average double pane window cost is about $505. I just did a basic national search, and the average is anywhere from like $500 and $800. So I used the lower end. So it's about $505 per window installed, a double pane window. And if you're using that same heat pump efficiency that we were using earlier for the example, Going from a single pane window to a double pane window, the annual savings is $279.12. Okay, that doesn't seem like a lot, does it? Well, if you take the 12 windows at $505, that's roughly over $6,000. Okay, $6,000 cost, and it's savings $279 a year. That brings you to about a 22-year simple payback. And that's from a really bad window to a very decent window. So the point of this is you do need good windows, but understand if you are putting in new windows and you're going from a single pane to a double pane, which I think is a very wise idea, you have to have a good window. But understand that the payback is I mean, this here is 22 years. From going from a single pane bad window to a double pane good window, that's really airtight. That's why it's so high on this pyramid. That's why it costs a lot and the return is just so far out. You know, that's why this is one of the last things you want to do in terms of an investment in your house. So let's do another calculation. I get this question quite a lot. I have double pane windows and I want to go to a triple pane. Well, let's do the math on that as well. So if you're replacing 12 double pane windows, 3x5 double pane, and you want to go to a triple pane window, the average triple pane window cost is about $825, and that's on the lower end, okay, the national average. So if you take $825 from a double pane to a triple pane, same efficiency, excuse me, as we used earlier, the annual savings is only $187.34. Okay, $187 going from double pane to triple pane. That's it for a year of heating. Now, this is actually heating and cooling. I'm sorry, I did the calculation on both seasons. So you take $825 at 12 windows, that's almost $10,000, $9,900. Whoops, there's a boo-boo there. It should be $9,900. At $270 savings, not $60. But at almost $10,000 for 12 windows, at $825, you're looking at a 52-year simple payback. 52 years to recover the cost from going from a double pane to a triple pane window. I don't know. If you ask me, I would say that's not the greatest investment in the world. The next slide. Okay, last but not least, solar. And as you can see, this is one of the more popular topics that I am discussing now with our members every single day. And there's a reason why this is the last thing that anybody should do or should consider doing for an investment at their house. That's why it's at the top of this pyramid. Number one, it's because it's the most costly, and number two, it's arguably the most. It takes the longest for a payback. Okay, so let's go ahead and do some, I have an example here. I've got some raw numbers here I want to share with you on putting a solar system in at your home that is grid connected to us, that's grid tied to us. And by the way, that is probably the most cost-effective way to have a solar system at your home supplementing your electric use from us, the power company. Going grid tied and having any excess power being sold back to us that we would purchase. So let's say you have a home that, assuming a home that uses 15,000 kilowatt hours per year, which is actually about average on our system. So if you have 15,000 kilowatt hours per year and you install a 10 kW DC system, a 10,000 watt DC system, that's about 80% of the annual electric use from us, from the co-op. So if you are putting a system in, you want to put in a solar system at your home and want to be grid tied to us, you can size the system up to 80% of your annual energy use. Okay, that's what we would allow, up to 80%. The sweet spot for cost effectiveness is between 60 and 80% of your annual energy use. Anything below or above, it's going to take the payback way further out. And I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. So 80% of annual electric use if you're using power from the co-op, is what you can size that system to. And so if you put in a 10 kW system, you would expect about 12,000 kilowatt hours from that 10 kW system of solar generation. And so if you put in that 10 kW system at your house, you're looking at about an average of $2.50 per watt DC installed, okay? Putting in a solar system at your house is about $2.50 per watt DC installed. So that comes out to about $25,000. Right now there is a federal tax credit of 30%. And if you apply for that and get it, then it brings the cost down from $25,000 to $17,500. Okay, so that's 30% is tremendous savings. Without that, I think the cost would be unattainable and the payback would just be way too far out. At any rate, so let's go ahead and assume that you do put this system in, and the retail rate that you are going to be paying us will be 8.3 cents per kilowatt hour, as you can see on this page here. You will be paying 8.3 cents any power you use from the co-op, and any power that your system generates that you don't use, okay, that your home doesn't use above and beyond, comes to us. So the meter will essentially buy that power back from you. So the meter will work in the other direction. And any power that comes back on to our system, we will pay the avoided cost rate, which is 7.7 cents per kilowatt hour. And actually, that's a very, very good rate, buyback rate. It's about 2 cents more than it was last year. So we saw an increase of 2 cents, avoided cost increase in 1 year, or less than a year actually. So that 7.7 cents actually fluctuates from year to year. It just depends on what that buyback rate is, and that's set by Buckeye Power. So if we go to the next slide, if you look at that same solar system that we installed, and presuming based on how it's sized, we will only purchase 7% of that power that it generated that came back to us. Okay, only 7% of that power came back to the co-op, and that's what you want. You want to use all of the power, every single kilowatt hour that system generates. You want to use it at your house. You want your house to use it because it's valued at 8.3 cents per kilowatt hour. If we purchase it and it comes back to us, it's only valued at 7.7 cents. Okay, so if you look at these lines here, the 7% at 12,000 kilowatt hours, that's 840 kilowatt hours credited at 7.7 cents. That's only $64 a year. Now look at the rest of what came back to us, what was generated in what you used. 93% of 12,000 is 11,160 at 8.3 cents. That's $926.22. So that's why it's important to have that sweet spot. You don't want to be oversized and you don't want to be too undersized. So again, between 60 and 80%, that's where you want to be, and you are allowed to be at 80% if you grid tie with us, connect with us. So the total annual value, okay, the total annual solar value, what that solar system will pay per year is $990. Let's just say $1,000 and round it up. So you'll get about $1,000 savings a year on a $17,500 system at $990 savings. It's about 17.7 years payback. And that's a simple payback at $2.50 DC. With a $2.50 DC install price. I'm sorry. That was a little hard to get out, but at any rate, yeah. So if you are looking at putting solar in, we can have a discussion. I have a lot of discussions with our members every single day about this, and realistically, these are the numbers that we're seeing with our rates. The way we actually net bill, we don't net meter. So we do net bill, which means you will get, the kilowatt hours that are put back onto our system, you will get a credit on your bill from month to month at the end of the month. So you'll get a credit in a dollar value. So at any rate, It's about 17, 15 to 20 years is what you could expect on our system with the prices today. And so if anybody has any questions about what I went over, I know I went over quite a lot of stuff here in a short period of time, but I think these are very critical, very important things that I talk about every single day with our members, and I think this is something that we all need to be discussing with each other. And if you have any questions, please give me a call. Do not hesitate. I am here for you guys. Okay, Energy Advisor, Paulding Putnam Electric. I'm sorry I took so long, and I am through with my presentation, and we're going to now switch over to Todd Taylor, our IT manager, and he's going to go over cybersecurity. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter, for your presentation. It was very enlightening and a lot of good information. Now we're going to switch from energy to cybersecurity, which, as everybody knows, it's becoming a bigger and bigger topic in our area, as well as in the United States. So, I thought I would help you guys out with some basic information. The agenda for this evening is just going to be an overview of cybersecurity at first. Then we're going to go into phishing emails and how to protect yourself. Then we're going to talk about cyber hygiene, which is a lot of information, a lot of steps that you can do to protect yourself from a cyber attack. Then we're going to go into protecting your home computers from attack. And then our final topic will be password protection. Firstly, I'd like to talk to you about when cybersecurity attacks began. And it actually began on November 2nd, 1988 at 8:30 in the morning. That's when the first cyber attack was unleashed on the internet from MIT. And the cyber worm propagated at a record pace, and it affected several thousand computers. And it brought these computers to a grinding halt. And that's how the world decided that, yeah, maybe we could do something to computers that could, make us some money. And that's everything behind cybersecurity is money. And what you'll learn is cyber hackers are very lazy. If they try to get into a computer and can't, they move on because they know there's stuff out there that they can get to that'll be a lot easier. So as we go through this whole process and you learn different types of ways to protect yourself, you'll see that if you do certain things, it'll make it harder for them to get in, and they'll just say, I'm not going to get into this computer, and we'll move on. As you can see, Clark School of Study at the University of Maryland did a study, and the consistent rate of hackers attacking a computer on the internet happens every 39 seconds on average, and it really affects 1 in 3 Americans every year. So that's a big number. And over 262 million network exploit attempts were observed in 2022. And the biggest one is remote code execution, and what that is they put something on your computer and they can take it over and you don't even know they're there. So, that's the biggest vulnerability type that's out there. The type of attacks that we see in our landscape right now, a malware attack. This is the most common type of attack, and what that is they're putting software on your machine that can either encrypt your machine, key loggers to watch what you're keying, just all kinds of different attack methods that they can do. Phishing attacks is probably the biggest one right now because people have understood that what they need to do is they need to have a firewall. They need to protect themselves. And these computers are getting so hard for people to get into anymore that what they're doing is they're sending out phishing attacks, which is an email that has links in it that are bad links. They ask for credentials, passwords, credit cards, all types of stuff like that. And that's the easiest way for them to attack right now. They can send out 1 million emails, and if 2 or 3 people answer it, they've just made their payday. So, phishing attacks are very, very, very prevalent right now, and that's something that you really need to look at, and we will talk in further detail on this later in this presentation. Password attacks, same thing, they're stealing your passwords. Man in the middle, they put their computer in between you and something else, and they just watch the traffic and try to capture what type of information that they can get off of yours. Denial of service is just that. They can make your computer unusable where you can't do anything. And then the rest of these are just SQL injections, zero-day exploits, but we won't really go into any of that today. Basically what we're looking at is phishing attacks and zero-day exploits. So let's look at let's look about phishing emails and actually what a phishing scam is. Basically what a phishing is, it's a type of social engineering attack that users try to steal your information with. It's including login credentials, like I said, credit cards. It usually occurs when an attacker is masquerading as a trusted entity, and it dopes the victim, our members, anybody, into opening an email and inserting whatever they're asking for. It could also come as a text message. There's millions of ways to do it, and basically I gave you some examples here on this slide of what the emails and what phishing attacks are. PayPal telling you your account's been compromised, you need to do something to it to either reactivate it, and they're asking for you to confirm with a credit card detail, and when you do that, you've just given them your credit card and the sky's the limit. They'll take whatever that credit card amount has on it and use it. Also, invoice scams are another big one. They send out an invoice to you, say specifying that you need to give them a credit card to pay for this invoice. Again, when you give them the credit card, or any type of information, address, date of birth, whatever. Once they've got that, they've got you, and it's really hard to stop them from taking whatever they want. Here's a couple signs that you can, when you have a phishing email, to look for, or you suspect one. An unfamiliar greeting. It's very, very simplistic. Hello. Just a very unfamiliar greeting. Grammar errors is a big thing. Look at the email, read it. If grammar errors show up, I would question that and say, hey, this is not right. If somebody sends you an email address and it's from an address you don't know, or doesn't look the same, that's another red flag to say, hey, this is something wrong. Requests for unusual content or requests are another one. Requests for login credentials, something that says urgency, act immediately, action required now. I would definitely take a look at that and say, hey, this doesn't look right. Something isn't quite right with this email. And then we're going to go into zero-day exploits, and what that is, and I just wanted to get you guys familiar with this because it's going to be happening more and more. It's actually what it is. It's a vulnerability that has been found in a piece of software that you have on your computer. It could be some type of office solution, anything that's on your computer that hasn't been patched yet, and the company knows about it, and it gets leaked out, and the hackers find it, they're going to go and try to get whatever they can out of this from you. So just be aware of when you hear this and you have the software on your machine, make sure you're patching that software to cover up for that vulnerability, because the hackers will attack you. If they can run programs that go out there and be able to find where this software is, and they'll just start pounding on it until they find it. So if you hear about it, and it's always in the papers, always on the news, there's been a 0-day exploit. And if you have that on your machine, please be contacting the software vendor and asking them about any type of patching that they're going to do to fix this. Now we're going to go into cyber hygiene and the best practices for users. Cybersecurity is everybody's responsibility. We have a saying here at the co-op that, IT is the cybersecurity responsibility, and it's really not. It's all of us here at the co-op are responsible for cybersecurity. We take it very seriously here. Myself personally, I went in and went to the University of Purdue and did their CyberTap, which is a extensive 22-week class on cybersecurity, on how to protect yourself, how to look at different situations. And the last class, which was probably the funnest, was becoming an ethical hacker, where you were in groups and you hacked into computers and didn't do anything malicious, just it was fun. It was part of the class, and that was the best part of it. But for your cyber hygiene, the best thing you can do is do backups. Regularly back up important files to a separate device, whether it's a flash drive, whether it's another hard drive, anything that you can isolate, keep it in a secure location. If your computer does get compromised, at least you have those documents backed up and saved. And if you wanted to, you could just restore those back in and be back to where you were. So backups, my recommendation is to back up all your important documents and stuff on a USB drive, and if you have a safe in your house, just go ahead and put that in there. Then it's pretty safe, and if something would happen, you could get those documents back without paying any type of ransomware or ransom money. Education is another big thing. Always read any type of periodics. I mean, just keep yourself aware of what's going on out there. The internet has a ton of stuff on security and what's going on out there. What you need to look at. Phishing, they've got great examples. So just educate yourself on the types of stuff that's going on out there, and that'll really help in your protection of yourself and your data and your credentials. There are other ways to do it. You can encrypt your computer itself. The encryption will protect the sensitive data on your computer. Also, password protect any important documents is another way to protect them. And we'll get into further in this presentation about passwords and how to make secure passwords and make them complex. Password hygiene, like I just said. According to Verizon, in 2021, 61% of all breaches involved users' credentials. So maintaining a good password hygiene is paramount to protecting yourself. An easy password, and I have a screen at the end that'll show you how quickly hackers can hack passwords that are not complex. Patch management is another real good thing that you need to do. Make sure your computer's patched. The new Windows software, pretty much, if you set it up, patches itself for you. So Windows is pretty much patched on its own. Getting security software, antivirus, anti-malware, that protects yourself from viruses, ransomware, spyware. Make sure that the software is configured correctly, and run scans regularly to make sure nothing's on your computer that you don't know about. You know, those are probably some of the biggest hitters when it comes to cyber hygiene and the best practices that I found. Other things to do about when you're protecting your home computer from attack, use your computer firewall. It's on by default. Just make sure that that's on. That will protect you. Keep all your software that's on your computer up to date. Use antivirus software and keep it current. Make sure your passwords are well chosen and protected. And what I mean by protected, there is free software out there that you can use to put your passwords in. So it's just better to not use the same password for everything. Try to break them up, because once they have that one password and you used it for your banking, your credit card, online bank or online shopping, anything like that, once they've got that first password and you've used it across the board, then they can get into any one of those accounts and do damage. So that's something to be really cognizant about. Do not use the same password for multiple accounts. Browse the web safely, you know. Just be cognizant of where you're going, what you're looking at. You know, it's just browse safely. And stay away from pirated materials. That is, you know, if somebody sends you something that says, hey, I got this off the internet and I don't know where it came from, it's probably a pirated piece of software, and those pieces are easily hacked. So I would just stay away from any type of, some friend says, hey, I'm giving you this CD to install this software with. You know, it's a bad idea. Now this is the best part of the presentation. It's strong password protection. Basically, what you need to do, 12 characters or more. The more characters, the better. To have, when you create your password, make sure it has a mixture of both uppercase and lowercase, letters and numbers, and at least include one special character. And the special character could be an @ sign, a pound sign, dollar sign, exclamation point, something like that. Like I said, the more characters, the harder it is to crack. And adding the special characters just even makes it more complex. Here's some things you probably shouldn't do and use as a password. Make it the same as your username. Some of these may sound a little funny and common sense, but you know, passwords are common sense. Personal information like name, city, birthday, family member names, all that stuff. That information is easily found anymore out on the internet. So, you know, just don't even use them. And here's a list of other ones: welcome, QWERTY, ABC123, passwords. All these are bad passwords that can be cracked or hacked in a matter of seconds. Here's a couple of articles that I found that I'd like to read to you. You know, even if you think your passwords are completely unguessable, repeating the same password on multiple websites can still pose a risk. Besides, there are gazillions of internet users all over the world. The likelihood that your favorite password might also be a favorite of 100 of the other users is possible. as a rule of thumb, be creative when creating your passwords. So, you know, just be creative. Sentences, you know, phrases are good passwords. Something that you can remember is also a good password. As per Google recommendations, do not use any words from the dictionary. You should also have a different password for each website. If you have memory issues, you can install free password manager software like I talked about previously. Avoid the use of keyboard patterns and sequential numbers to make your passwords more unique. Include special characters and numbers. You can probably include punctuation marks and numbers. There's just many things you can do to make your password more complex, and that is the biggest thing I'd like to get across today is having strong passwords. The strong passwords makes it difficult for a hacker to get into your machines or get into any of your accounts. And like I said at the beginning of this presentation, hackers are lazy. If it takes them more than a couple, 3 or 4 tries to get something, they'll move on. They don't want to mess around with it because to them, time is money. Okay, here's the strong password protection, and this is what I was talking to you about, the time it takes a hacker to brute force your password in 2022. And if you have like a number of 4 characters, numbers only, they can crack it instantly. Lowercase, instantly. And as you can see, the number of characters, as it goes down, the more characters you have, the more special characters, uppercase and lower characters, the harder it is to crack. And you know, 12 is a standard, but if you look at it and you go across and look at 12, if you have number characters, uppercase and lowercase letters, you know, it could take 200 years to crack your password. And this is very interesting. When I found this, it made a lot of sense to me. I mean, the shorter the passwords, the easier it is to crack. That is all I have today on my presentation. I appreciate guys taking your time to look at this presentation. If you have any questions, get a hold of the co-op, and they'll be able to get them to me, and I can answer them for you. Thank you again.